everyone! So I wanted to do a reading wrap up for the last 3 months. I haven't filmed one of these in quite a while. I just haven't really got a chance to. So I just thought I would put November, December and January all together. But yeah, basically I'm not the quickest reader in the whole world, so that's not going to be too many books. I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I only read 7 books, but I did read some very good books. I'm excited to talk about them. As you can see, my background is different. That's because I'm home. I ended up coming home for Christmas, then after New Year I ended up car shopping. And nobody told me that took forever, because apparently you have to check out every single dealership in the county before you decide. Then I got COVID. I don't know if you can tell from my voice, not totally back yet. So that was a rough 2 weeks, but I'm better now. So I thought I would sit and film this video. Because of that, I don't have some of the books with me, but I will just insert a picture whenever I'm talking about it. So yeah, the first book I finished in November, I think, was The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I looked up how to say his second name and Google says Michaelides, but some people say Michaelides. I'm not quite sure. I'll go with Michaelides. So he's the author of The Silent Patient, which I haven't read but I do own, and that book did very well, and this is his follow-up. This was a very anticipated release for a lot of people this year, and it's supposed to have dark academia vibes. It's a murder mystery thriller. This book, some people online think it's absolute trash and then some people love it. It's a very funny book. I picked this up. I actually did a readathon called Vampathon at the very last week of October. So I started reading this book, put it down for that week and then picked it back up again. So I ended up finishing it in November. It was a very quick read, like very quick. The chapters are really short. The font was really big. So it's a very quick book to get through. It's so funny to try to review this because I actually did quite enjoy the process of reading it, but the issues with this book are so glaring that it's very hard to give it a high marking. I think when I finished it I was like, oh, that's a 4-star book, but now that I think about it more, I'm like, oh gosh, it's 3 at most. It's so weird because I did enjoy reading it. It was like the equivalent of watching Love Island or Big Brother, like trashy TV, but still knowing it's bad but still enjoying the process of watching it or reading it. That's the only thing I can describe it as. It was very fast paced. You have Marion, is it Marion? I actually forget the I forget the lady's name of the main character. So I think her and her husband met in Cambridge. Years later, their niece Zoe is going to Cambridge as well. Her best friend is murdered at the university and Marina goes to her and helps and tries to solve the mystery herself, even though she's not a detective. I enjoyed some of the twists and turns, like the reveal at the end I actually thought was quite good. I really liked how there is a bit of an unreliable narrator element to this book. That being said, I think the thriller tropes, now I'm not a very experienced thriller reader, so I don't know if some of these tropes were very too overdone or not at all. You know, it's kind of setting up that this professor is definitely the killer, and of course he's not. Mild spoiler, but it's so obvious that he's not. The twist was very good. I really like how someone's perception of a character or description of a character can be so different to the reality. So I did quite like that element of it. There was just some glaring faults with this book, and like the whole concept of the Maidens, which was a society on the canvas, wasn't that appealing or made any sense really. When you think of like The Secret History and you have the group of main characters that are a society under the teacher Julian, you understand it and you understand why they are a society together. This one was very like a caricature. It was just very there and not really explained why. There's some tropes in this, like just introducing a random character and then they're never mentioned again. And I don't know, is that a thriller trope that they're just trying to get you off the scent who's committing the murders? You have the trope of a person who's not a detective thinking they're better than an actual detective, you know, which is kind of frustrating. There's a scene where Marina watches 2 people just randomly have sex in a graveyard, and it's just so abrupt and it just happens. And there was no build up or anything to it. Like there was just some of these like really random scenes thrown in, and just some of it was very eye roll worthy. That being said, so I think the best description of it was like watching trashy TV. You enjoyed it but you know it's trash. So that was my experience of reading The Maidens. I didn't really get much dark academia from it. It was just more of a thriller. It's set in Cambridge though, and I did really like the allusions to Greek mythology. I did quite like that. So yeah, I think if you're a fan of thrillers, I think you would quite enjoy it. It is like an enjoyable ride. but it's not very good. But yeah, I think my favourite thing about it was the twist at the end. There is a lot of hints leading up to it and you're like, like I would love to actually reread it and just see all the hints leading up to the reveal. I just thought it was very, very good. But yeah, just the good points of the book just didn't redeem the bad points of the book. So it ended up with just a very average book. Still quite enjoyed it nonetheless. The next book I read, and I started this during Vampathon, was Dracula by Bram Stoker. Of course, one of the original classic horror books. I started reading this, and I do have my Vampathon vlogs and stuff where I start to read it. I really, really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it. That being said, it starts here. It starts top tier. I was reading the beginning of it and I was like, this is going to be a 5-star book. This is amazing. And then it just kind of went down. Yeah, the whole way just kind of went down. The pacing was way too slow. Way too slow. I think the beginning of the book you have, I keep forgetting people's names. Oh my gosh, I think it's Jonathan is the main character. He's a solicitor and he goes to stay with Dracula in his castle in Transylvania to help Dracula move to England. Basically, he's looking to purchase land in England and that's why he's there. And the whole scenes within Dracula's castle are so good. Like so good. It's so creepy. It's so well done. It's so well written. Then it kind of like shifts to England and you have Jonathan's fiance/wife and another character, her friend. You have this band of 3 men who all love this other woman and they're all the main characters of it. You obviously have Van Helsing as well. He's this Dutch doctor who kind of figures out what Dracula is, and they're all kind of on a quest to stop Dracula basically and kill him if they can. One of the characters is turned into a vampire in the middle of it. That is quite interesting. Thing is with this book is that it's all talk, no action, and I think most of it is the characters kind of like planning what they're going to do. The descent of one of the characters turning into a vampire, which is very interesting. How the book is written is so well done. It's basically written in like diary entries, newspaper clippings, and maybe like 2-3/4 of the way in the book you realize it's those characters themselves putting everything together, which is so smart. I definitely had a bit of a out of the fourth wall moment when I realised that. So yeah, it is very good. Just the pacing is so slow. It is a classic, I suppose, and obviously the pacing of books are very, very different. Like this was written in the late 1800s? That being said, I'm really glad I read it. It's a very accessible classic. Like I didn't find the English too difficult to understand. I just didn't find the execution that entertaining. I just thought it was a lot of the characters talking to each other. When there is a bit of action, it's very rushed, but it is a classic for a reason. It is fantastic. But yeah, I did kind of start thinking this book was amazing and it kind of just went downhill a little bit. It's a very scary book. It is actually very, very scary. Like Dracula himself is horrifying. It does make you feel so uneasy reading it. But yeah, I enjoyed it so much, but it just, maybe the pacing didn't hold up to reading it in the 2020s. But yeah, very accessible classic though if you did want to get into classics. But I definitely would, if someone wasn't sure about classics, I'd say definitely go for Dracula. It has its boring parts, but overall a very good reading experience. The next books I read, I didn't read these after each other, but I thought I would just put them together just in case someone isn't interested and they want to skip. I read books 10 and 11 from a series of unfortunate events. So number 10 is The Slippery Slope, and then number 11 is The Grim Grotto. These books especially are very much, from book 10 especially, are very the ramp up to the end. You're getting a lot more of the VFD secret society. You're learning a lot more about them. Things are starting to click. If you don't know about a series of unfortunate events, I'll give a brief synopsis. You have these siblings. In book 1, they lose their parents to a fire, and they're taken to be looked after this Count Olaf, and he is evil. He's after their fortune. They're left a massive fortune that they'll get when one of them comes of age, and he wants that fortune. So every book is kind of him trying to chase them. They're in a different situation and he's trying to capture them and their fortune. These are middle grade as well, but they still have a very dark gothic tone to them. Lemony Snicket's writing is phenomenal, phenomenal. It's so intelligent, it's so satirical, it's so witty. For example, like he'll tell you to stop reading the books because they're so terrible. They'll make you so sad. The writing is definitely the best thing about these. I read these when I was smaller, when they came out originally. I think I was like a preteen. What I'm doing is reading each one and then watching the equivalent shows on Netflix. Each book has been made into 2 episodes and that adaptation is perfection. Like, they honor the books so well, so well. So that's what I did with both of these, as well as I watched the equivalent episodes. I think these are season 3 now. But yeah, basically the slippery slope. In this book, Sunny, the youngest sibling, is separated from Klaus and Violet, and they're on the snowy mountaintop. There's an introduction of a character here that's really interesting, and overall very enjoyable. Then the Grim Grotto, you have the kids, they come across a submarine and they have to go search for this important item that's in this grotto. This one, there is a character in this that's rather annoying to read from. Like, their kind of dialogue is just not that intriguing, but still really enjoyed these. Each one has its own unique charm, and I loved the full circle moment. Like, Lemony Snicket is talking about cycles the whole time in this book, and then at the end of this book there's a full circle moment, which is so smart. Really smartly written. Yeah, I'm currently reading The Penultimate Peril, which is the 12th book, and yeah, I'm just excited to finish this series. I always know I'm going to pick up and enjoy these books. They're all very the same. Like, I don't feel like there's one book better than another. They're all very good in their own way, and all very the same tone. They're very consistent books, very consistent. So if you do like book 1, you're going to like all of them, which is great for a very long series. It has 13 books. Really enjoying that read of that. I'm taking my time. I'm reading them every so often. Like, I'll read another 2 or 3 books and then I'll like, oh, I'll do the next series of unfortunate events. But yeah, they're fun. There is an element of nostalgia for me because I read them when I was small, so I might be enjoying it more than a typical person who just picks it up now. But that being said, I think if you're aged, I think adults will totally enjoy this, even though it's a middle grade. Maybe kids from the age of like maybe 9 and up would probably like it. The themes can be a little bit dark, so maybe 9, 10, 11 would be a good age group for these. But yeah, really love them. These are actually my original ones that I had. I actually have my own set back in the house where I rent, and these are the original ones that I bought when I was really small, and they're totally damaged, but really love this series. The next book I read, and I talked about this quite in depth in my December vlog, is The Winter Garden by Alexandra Bell. I got this book in a book box club, I believe, and since it was like the Winter Garden, I thought it would be nice to read it in December, so it would have like kind of very wintry themes, and it did. So it's a lovely book to read in the winter time. This book was total magical realism. You have 2 characters. You have Beatrice and Rosa. Beatrice, when she's younger, she experiences grief, and this magical winter garden is revealed to her, and she gets to explore it every night for like a week, and then it disappears, and it skips to her 20s then, and basically her whole life she's kind of looking for this garden again. And then you have Rosa, and she really wants to be a socialite. She wants to be a duchess. She's kind of new money from America, and oh, I forgot to say that this is Victorian England that this is set in as well. I forgot about that. But yeah, this whole book basically is about your choices and the consequences of your choices. If you choose to say something to someone, if you choose to marry this person, what are the consequences of that? And which I thought was very well done. Like, the overall theme is thought out very well. There's great representation in this as well. Like, Beatrice has a stammer. It's not said, but it's kind of implied that she may be asexual, because she states that she's not attracted to anyone. She doesn't want to get married, and she just wants to live by herself and focus on her garden. She's obsessed with like mushrooms and stuff like that. And then Rosa can make these animals out of clockwork, and they basically nearly come to life. So it's a very magical book. The writing style is quite good, and it kind of flip-flops between their points of views. Some of the chapters are letter correspondences, and some of it is just normal storytelling. That being said, I wasn't dying about all the similes. I think the book was trying so hard to be magical, like a bit too hard, rather than just being magical. Like, for example, it would say something, I'm paraphrasing here, but it would say something like, the rain smelt like summer and new beginnings, or something like that. The writing style was like that, and I wasn't the biggest fan of that. Now, someone else would really enjoy that, but I found it too magical for the sake of being magical. I would rather something be shown to be magical than have to be told all the time. So that took me out of the experience a little bit. If the similes were toned down a little bit, I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. Also, I feel like the magical boundaries of this book don't really make sense, and they're not really explained very well. It wasn't until Rosa's clockwork animals are introduced that I was like, why is there animals coming to life from these clockwork things? I was totally under the impression that the world that they lived in was totally normal, and this winter garden was totally magical. But all of a sudden you kind of discover that the world that the characters live in is very magical as well. Like, you have these bullfrogs that will, if you hold them, you can see what someone thinks about you. So I kind of wish that was set up a little bit better. Like, it would have been fine, but I just wish the kind of magical boundaries would have been explained a little bit more at the beginning of the book, rather than just being suddenly dropped on you. Because I was totally under the impression this was normal world versus magical world, a little bit like Narnia. So that is the only thing. That being said, I did really enjoy it. I loved the themes, like the choice situation. There's a competition element that was really, really good. The characters themselves were so flawed, but you still really liked them. Like, they were super, super flawed, which I liked. There wasn't very obvious good person and bad person. There was a romance in it that I didn't quite believe too much, or didn't care for too much. That being said, kind of like the whole relating to the choice theme, it was very, very good. I did quite enjoy how it wrapped up because of the choice theme throughout the book. Definitely a solid little book. Really quite enjoyed it. It took me a long while to read it, I found. It was very, very long. That being said, the pacing was very good. There was, despite it being quite an innocent magical book, there's some very dark themes. So there's drug use mentioned, there's rape mentioned, so just bear that in mind if you're going to read it. So yeah, I think if you are interested in quite a magical book that explores how our choices can affect our lives, I did quite enjoy it. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. Oh lads, my voice. COVID hasn't totally left me yet. I'm actually filming a video on the Goodreads winners, and the young adult winner was Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo. And to read that though, I had to read the first book, which was King of Scars. So yeah, I think I will go into more depth in that video whenever it comes out. But I read King of Scars just before Christmas, and I just finished Rule of Wolves there yesterday. These were super enjoyable, so enjoyable. This is basically centered on Nikolai and Zoya from the original Grishaverse trilogy, and then it's also focused on Nina from the Six Crows duology. So they're the main points of views. There are other points of views as well that are kind of more minor, but those are the main two. What I would say about these are, if you enjoy the original trilogy, you're gonna love these. I thought these were better than the original trilogy, but not as good as the Six Crows duology. Also, you very much have to read the original trilogy and read the Six Crows duology to even understand what's going on here. You really, really do need to read all those 5 books first before you come here. So if you are a fan, I can guarantee you will love these. You will really, really love these. I thought Rule of Wolves was so good. So good. I really enjoyed King of Scars. It did have a plot twist in the middle of the book that I wasn't crazy about. It didn't feel like the Grishaverse anymore, and it kind of took me out of the story, even though what happens in the middle of this book is very integral to the rest of the story, and especially to Rule of Wolves. So I do think if you read King of Scars and you weren't crazy about it, but you still quite enjoyed it, definitely read Rule of Wolves, because it's much better. Even though I did enjoy them pretty equally, Rule of Wolves being a little bit better. But yeah, that is definitely my ranking. I think they're better than the original trilogy, but not as good as Six Crows. I think Six of Crows just has a little bit more of a charm to it, and definitely more character focused than plot focused, where I feel like the original trilogy and this duology are a little bit of both, like very much plot driven and very much character driven as well. What I love about these, especially in Rule of Wolves, you have this beautiful big huge orchestra of what is happening in the Grishaverse. Like, you have points of view in Fjerda, in Ravka, in Shuhan, and in Kerch and Ketterdam. So the whole world is involved in the stories here. It's very political, and there's a lot of like battle scenes and stuff like that. So if you're into kind of war stories, you'll really like these as well. There's definitely some gut-wrenching, like there's times where I've teared up just because things happen, and then there's backstories that are very sad and stuff. I really enjoy Leigh Bardugo's writing as well. I think she doesn't leave any stone unturned. She wraps everything up very well. She's very witty, especially with Nikolai. His dialogue is always my favourite thing, always. Like, I missed him in the Six of Crows duology, so I'm really glad he was back. The writing can be very slightly cheesy in places, but to each their own. There's multiple points of view, and I definitely found that I enjoyed other plotlines more than others. Like, I did enjoy the whole Nikolai and Zoya over Nina's, definitely, even though Nina's is very entertaining as well. There's romance in these, which are lovely. I'm finding it very hard to talk about these books because I'm like, I don't want to spoil anything. The only thing I found, this is a near 600 page book, it's 588 pages, and I actually did find the ending to be a little rushed. Like, a lot happens in very few chapters, and I nearly wish the book was 50 pages longer and made those scenes a little bit longer and drawn out just slightly, just really slightly. But yeah, I very much enjoyed reading this duology. It did take me most of January to read both of them, but yeah, very happy. And I really adore the Grishaverse. I really adore the original trilogy and Six of Crows. I love the show that they made on Netflix. This duology was definitely a very happy addition, and I'm actually very sad that there's no more books. I think Lee Bardugo has hinted at a third Six of Crows book, but I don't know how I feel about that because Crooked Kingdom ended perfectly. But there is actually going to be a Darkling prequel that's coming out in September, and that's going to be a graphic novel, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, I'm kind of sad I don't have any more Grishaverse books to read. And I adore this universe, and I would recommend, if you haven't picked it up, that you should. The original trilogy is definitely a product of its time, just bear that in mind. I think it came out in like 2010 or 2011 or something. It's very much Alina is not like other girls trope, but it's still very enjoyable, very charming. The universe and the whole religious subplot is just very interesting. The magical system is really good. Something I loved actually about the Nikolai duology is it kind of just goes deeper into things that you wanted to know more about. So definitely sainthood, which is obviously a huge theme, kind of really explores that, where Grisha power initiates. So I do just think if you are a fan of the Grishaverse trilogy, you're going to really love these. And I cannot wait to see, I hope they do some plots of this in the show, maybe in later seasons. So yeah, not as good as Six of Crows, but up there, definitely up there. So yeah, that's all the books I read this winter. Lots of big chunky books, so they all took me a while. I really apologise for my voice. Oh my gosh, I didn't realise I couldn't talk so much. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I try to do these monthly of all the books that I read. Obviously sometimes that doesn't happen and I put some months together, but yeah, I'll leave a playlist of all my wrap-ups as well in the description. I'll also leave all my socials. So yeah, if you want to subscribe, I do anything book related. So I do TBRs, I do unboxing videos, I do hauls, reading vlogs, anything book related I do on this channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!